We've got something a little different this week. This week I'm going to do a double release. Both of these episodes are with a bloke called Jody Lowe. The first episode, Jody and I sat down and he told his story. It was an interesting conversation. However, we were supposed to get to the never-ending distraction and chaos that we exist in, and we never quite got there. So I sat back down with Jody and did another one. That's going to be released with this one. It was an excellent conversation sitting down with Jody. Hearing a journey like his, it's proof that we can all change and evolve and see things from another direction. Use critical thinking and common sense to see through some of the stuff that we're going through. The chaos never ends, guys. All right. So this one's going to be called an introduction. And I found Jody through Facebook. He's a pretty prolific Facebook content provider, and it focuses around the chaos. However, it's excellent to sit down, and he has a very unique perspective. So give him a like, give him a follow. I'll chuck his links in the show notes. That's it, guys. What we're going to use is, and there's the kookaburras in the background. Gotta love Australia. Kookaburra is my spirit animal, actually. That's a conversation for another day. We're going to use Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond for these two episodes at least. And for those living down under, I used to live in Victoria. Canberra is north of Richmond, if we're talking about Richmond in Victoria, outside of Melbourne. That song, I've never seen a song in my life stir as much soul in people, regardless of colour, creed or religion. It's rare that a song like that comes along and does what it does, and it can't be understated. It's a protest song. And everybody, regardless of colour, creed or religion, agrees with that song. You know, when are we going to just agree that we agree over most stuff? And we can sort out the rest later, but we all agree that the bullshit that's going on is not cool. And we all know, to quote him, they think you don't know, I know that you do. Enjoy this one, guys. We're going to be sitting down with Jody on a semi-regular basis just to continue to explore the chaos and ways around it, and talk about our individual paths and involvements and stuff, and some tools you can have in the toolkit. Look forward to this one. I enjoyed it. And that's it, guys. We're on Patreon, Unlocking the Code. Give us, if you want to swing a couple of bucks our way, that'd be awesome. If not, totally cool. Just share and review. 5 stars. You know the drill, guys. Enjoy this one. Take care. Talk soon. Cheers.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. 'Cause the rich men, don't the rich men. I wish politicians would look out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men know the rich men. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got another first-time guest to Unlocking the Code tonight. We'll welcome Jody Lowe to the podcast. How are you, mate?
Fantastic. I can't talk now.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. There you go. See, the
Fantastic.
thing is, man, we create words here at the UTC, and we just created a new word. So
Yeah,
I'm totally happy. So you're
I'm
fantastic.
fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
great, man. Mate, you're pretty prolific on Facebook, where you got a lot of videos and you've been trying to navigate the chaos yourself. And we had a bit of a chat before we turned the mics on, and I think for your listeners as well as mine, you came to us through the chaos. You woke up. Was that the term you want to use, or you became aware, or what term? Doesn't really matter what the term is, but where'd you come from, mate? What are you doing here?
Yeah, I sort of had not a rough one. I had a different upbringing, as a lot of people do, and I probably found myself around 30. Found myself super successful, going really well. Had strong business, strong family, and then through a divorce, in the space of about 4 years, in early 30s, I lost my stepdad, which was my only dad, or only father figure. I lost the father-in-law because of the divorce type thing. It wasn't a divorce, but it was a 16-year separation with 3 kids involved, so it was messy.
Yep.
Lost my granddad, who was the sort of only strong male figure in my life outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
And over the next couple of years, I lost a lot of money in the separation, and then I lost my business, a business up north. So my mental health went to shit pretty quick.
And what's the timeline on this? Is this pre the chaos, or this is during? Or
this is 16 years ago. So I'm 46. I'm 46. So this was 16 years ago. So so previous to that, on the early side of my 30s, everything I touched had turned to gold, and I had found my way out of the darkness of my upbringing. From up to 20, where alcohol, gambling would have definitely been in my future, and drugs to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
I was a smoker, out of shape, and I monkey see, monkey do. So so I turned the corner when I had my first daughter. Trying to pull my finger out of my ass. I had my first daughter at 20 years old. A month later, I'm 21.
Mm-hmm.
Partner at the time's 19. And shit gets real pretty quickly for me. So, I've always been a jovial sort of guy. So, quick-witted, coal miner. So it's plenty of disposable income for a young idiot. And so that wasn't really too much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
It can get you in more trouble than it.
That's true. It can create more issues than it solves. Yeah.
Oh yeah, particularly when they hear that you're a coal miner.
Yeah.
It's like, and they can see the greenness in you. Like, oh, look at this idiot.
So
he thinks he's going to be a world beater. Oh, come on in, Mr. Coal Miner. We've got the car for you.
Yeah.
So that led me on a journey. I followed more along the path of the leadership that I'd never sort of seen before of the father-in-law at the time, the ex-father-in-law, and he was the rich dad of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series for me. So I became sort of a big fan of reading for the first time in a long time. And
okay.
I went down the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad scenario. Pretty famous books at the time about property investment. 1, 2, 3, 4 greenhouses and a red hotel later. I'm kicking goals at 30. Untouchable in my eyes.
And it all come crashing down. All come crashing down though. All come crashing down though, didn't it?
That's right. Yeah, and I describe that these days. Now I know a lot more about the world, the systems that drive it, as a moron, who had a boogie board that went out thinking that he was, some sort of surfing ability, caught a wave in, waving to the shore. Look at me, it's this easy, and
You didn't see the one that was behind it, did you? You didn't see
yeah, and then and it just pumped me. Eventually, when it sort of worked out that the ability was, my ambitions and my ability were two different things, and
mixed up a little,
yeah, and look, it dumped me on the beach, and it filled me full of sand, and the tide washed back out, ready for the next wave.
Mm-hmm.
I lay there probably 10 years in real terms. Laid there feeling sorry for myself about this wave, and 5 years into that feeling sorry for my part as playing the victim, I got up and ran out with my broken boogie board and determined to catch this next wave, this next big thing. And when what you're like when you don't get that rhythm, you just keep getting pumped by those waves, trying to get back out to that one good ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, these are surfing references. I'm just trying to make it easy for people to visualize it.
It's all right. It's all right.
But yeah, that was me. So my mental health declined. I had a massive anxiety and depression issue come on about a year or so after losing my business.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to what I did, what I knew to do best, which was coal mining. So it's always good to have a doctor's wage as a backup for when you're out trying your wares in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I sort of got stuck in the why me. I didn't realize I was in the why me. I got stuck in the why me. I got stuck in the victim, and I really became. I've always been really good at. If I stick my mind to something, I learn it pretty quickly, and I can. I'm usually well versed in it. That comes from having a pretty tough stepdad, who would question everything and never praise or reward anything. So it didn't matter how good you were; it was only about how bad you were. And so if you were going to mess with him, or if you're going to debate with him, or if we even got a conversation out of him, because most days he would basically pretend like I didn't exist. It was easier for him to ignore me than have to entertain me, sort of thing. So it was a walk in the door, a quick hello, and out the door, to do his thing, and that's all life really was about with him. So I in later years, once I started working out that his trauma was causing my trauma, it's sort of, you start realizing how long that sort of stuff's been getting handed down, and why I was where I was at. So,
well, the thing is, mate, I think we've got to be cycle breakers, Jody. I did that in my family as well, and you've got to be the father you didn't have, basically. You've got to, step up or shut up. And I think, when you get handed these, I like to call them smackdowns from the universe, right? And because that's what it is, right? You probably got a little too big for your boots, and the universe is, but also through that, there's also learning, which I imagine that you learned a great deal in that process. And, spending 10 years in the hole, look, I suffered depression and anxiety until about 33, really. From a very young age, and to the point where I didn't, it wasn't anything different to me, mate. You know what I mean? That was just my life. Until I met a good friend and a mentor of mine, Franco. He's been on the show early on. He's currently, I don't know where he is. He's around Australia somewhere. But anyway, he just kept poking me until the whole bloody lot come crashing down. You know what I mean? And you begin to, as you say, you start understanding trauma. Generational trauma, and then your own trauma tacked onto that, your own decisions, your own failings and stuff like that. So 10 years. So what's that? So where are we up to? You went back coal mining. Was that late 2000s, somewhere in there?
Yeah, So I sort of, as soon as I got that money back into my hands, I was lucky not to be bankrupted on the other end of my business loss. But I sort of wanted to rebuild Rome and quickly, and I wanted to, catch that wave. And so I threw every bit of money and every bit of time I had into restarting a subdivision company, buying multiple houses, doing what I had done well the previous decade, and the market had turned on me by then. So not only, I compressed and compounded my ignorance into the market further and further. The harder I tried to win it back. Basically like a sad gambler at the table. Just like one more spin. This will be the spin.
This will be the one. This will be the one. This will be the one.
Yeah. So I tied hands, and the part of me that I was saying about when I sort of segued off with my stepdad was, like at work, I became, I started realizing that my body was breaking down. I'm a ultra competitive person, and meaning that, two flies on the wall, bet you $5 is a fun thing to do, but like me and you standing there throwing a piece of paper at a bin, if I see you throw a piece of paper bin and it bounces off the side, I'd be like, I've got to grab that piece of paper. I'm going to have a shot.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's sort of like, and that's most of my friends everywhere I went. If I'd go and visit a certain friend, he was a gym fanatic. So we'd go to the gym and it'd be like, how much can we lift? And I go to another friend and he was like, he's a golf fanatic, and I was pretty handy at golf. It'd be, who could play golf, and then if it's tennis, it was golf. So there's always been something about me that's been modeled around that competitive nature. I've been a B grader, and I've played nearly every sport competitively in the country, and always been a B grader at it. So but people think that the competitiveness means that I want to beat you, and it's never really been about that. It's been about, I want to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
So I can whip your ass in golf 20 by 20 shots and shoot a bad score for myself for what I'm capable of, and it would be
wouldn't matter that you beat me. Wouldn't matter that you beat me. No.
That's right. It'd be disappointing to me. I was out there playing against myself, because that's just what the way that I'd been built. As growing up, it was sort of an only child. I didn't have that father figure.
Do you think that? That can serve you, obviously, but it also can be a disservice as well, can't it? Like is that something that you're exploring as well? The disservice of that nature of that part of your nature.
Absolutely. Like it's the best of me and the worst of me. So and simultaneous. Like my wife is an energy healer. She teaches me about duality and the necessity of duality in this planet, and how they work hand in hand. And
they have to,
the balance.
They have to.
Yeah. And the balance is the meeting point between those two opposite poles.
Absolutely. That's we call that. So there's a whole. I don't want to segue. I want to come back to what you're saying, but that's the triptych, man. Right. So it's the left, the right, the dark, the light, the masculine, the feminine, and what we're trying to achieve is the God self or the goddess self. The best version of ourselves. And we can only do that through acknowledging the dark and the light and being both at the same time. That's the never-ending journey, Jody. You know what I mean, mate? That's the never-ending journey. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful dance. When you really start to understand it and see it in yourself and become the observer of yourself rather than the operator.
Yes. Very, very, very difficult to do and maintain. However,
for sure.
It's if you once you taste that, it's very much something you're continually chasing.
It is. I mean, the motto from I've got two different companies. One for the mental health side and one for just a basic overall sort of a wellness marketplace. And it's always been chasing the ability to always be better and never settling for best. Because best is such an overrated word. Because the reality of it is nobody achieves best and then stops there. But best would sit at the hierarchical type of word. You'd always say best is here. And so when people look to best, they're always looking to get to somewhere where they should be looking beyond that, because once you get to best, if you stop there, then you won't be the best for long.
The thing is best is perspective, though, isn't it, mate? There's always going to be someone better than you, man. It doesn't matter what you're doing. There's going to be someone better than you. There's going to be someone worse than you.
And that's why I like better.
Yeah.
That's why I like waking up every day to be better. It doesn't matter that I might be the best that I've ever been, but I still want to be better tomorrow.
Well, one of the things that I do teach in the classes and have said on the show before is you just got to be a better human than you were yesterday, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's your aim every day. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday. You get up today. Can you be a better human than you were yesterday? Just for yourself, for your family, for everybody around you in your profession. You know, you can always be better. And I think the quest for perfection, I'm not going to say it's a waste of time. You know what I mean? It's all these classic cliches, isn't it, mate? It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. However, it's true. That is absolutely true, you know?
Yeah. Well, mine is just a quest for growth.
Yeah.
Because I've seen what perfect looks like in this world, and it's not. It's a myth and it's a lie. And
yeah, absolutely.
And the people that usually portray themselves as that are faking it until they make it. At best.
Mate, anyone that says they're the grand poobah master, you know, that immediately for me is like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, no, you're not. Like
no, and yeah, and that's
I know that I know nothing, Jody. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I've got 200 and something who never knows thousands of hours and blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. You know, of the screen that we're looking at each other on, it's 1 pixel, man. That's how much I know. I know nothing. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'd be happy if I knew that.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Right.
Yeah, when I learned how to cut and paste in Excel, you know, I thought I was a guru. And 7 years later in office work, you know, I'm at 0.5%, and I'm feeling pretty handy because people come and ask me how to do things.
Yeah. Hey.
So the bar is set so low these days to be an expert in something. It really is, you know, it really is something that I tell when I like to train up and coming coordinators and supervisors how to navigate the systems of all things that probably wokeism has fundamentally created for them to be looking after these days. Yeah. You're not just a supervisor of the job. You know, you're the risk holder. You're the document controller. You know, you are the mental health counsellor. You know, you are the inclusion and diversity specialist.
Yeah.
You know, you are all things. You're all things these days in those roles. So, you know, I try and teach that sort of stuff. But before I get myself off,
we diverted, mate. So ultra competitive. Your body was breaking. Which, you know, how old are we now? How old are we? What are we talking? How old are you now?
So I ruptured a disc in my spine. I blew my knee out playing football at 26. I ruptured a disc in my spine at 27. Took a year to sort of recover. 31, I come back. 32, I come back mining. A year into it, I blow my back out again. A year later, I blow my knee out for the second time. I'm done. So competitive sports, I'm done.
So how did you handle that? Did the depression follow that as well? Like
massive, massive. Because
your physical ability is now gone.
Correct. And an active dad, you know, sort of thing. So you know, I lose that, and unfortunately, or fortunately, work becomes my competition. You know, so I start competing at work basically because that's the only place left that I can be competitive.
Yep.
And the goal is always to beat the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And I was good. Like I was good. That, you know, like I was you know, very well versed. I was a formidable opponent, and I knew my stuff, and the results of that were very evident. But the opposite side of that was, you know, more drama for my mental health than the success was ever going to make. The money was making no difference.
You were being competitive on a coal mine. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I'm an underground coal mine.
Right. So I mean, that's not. Yeah, man. There's some aggressiveness there. Like if you're trying to achieve and apply that competitive spirit in that environment with those men as well, which aren't going to take too well to you competing with them.
No, it's an alpha. It's an alpha.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Oh, guys, I spent 16 years FIFA, man. I was underground gold for a little while.
Yeah.
Above ground. All sorts, man. Oil and gas, geothermal. You know what I mean? Like it's an alpha dog environment. So did you succeed?
It's great.
How did you go?
It's grade 13 and onwards of high school.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same principles of the jocks. It's the same principles of the nerds. It's the same bully mentality. Like, I was.
So you're depressed. You're depressed at this time as well because your back's blown, your knees done.
Mate, I'm a high functioning anxiety free. You know what I mean? Like I'm literally the more anxiety it gave me, the busier I would be to stop myself thinking about that.
Exactly, to distract yourself from the actual issue instead of
correct. So like I give the example. I took over. I took over a department that was struggling to meet targets. I had 100 people under me. The boss there had been gifted me from another department. They're like, he's amazing and he sorted everything out and we've got it all, but we just need a break because he's hard work. So we don't want him gone, but we just need a break. And my boss was American, and he's like, he just brings me in and he says, look, he tells me it's straight. They need a break. You need a break from them. You've set everything, set the foundations up for them to have success. I'm new to this role. I don't know much about the underground space, and I don't trust anybody, but I trust you, even though I don't know you. So would you work for me? And I said, I will. And he said, I want you to keep my people safe and keep me out of jail. They're my two biggest directives that I've got for you. And I will give you the rope that you need, and I will pull it when I see you barking, too hard at somewhere, because we both agreed that, you do need to get pull every now and again.
Yeah.
Beautiful. He said, outside of that scope, go for gold. I'll be your umbrella. And so, we took over. They had 4 coordinators in that section. And within 2 months, 3 of them would put complaints in about me to him, about just getting into it too much, lifting the carpet too much, flipping things on its head too much, with legislation, legalities, budgeting. And they were feeling the pressure. So they thought, well, collectively we'll dob. So he removed all 3 of them from the department and kept me. So I took over the entire department in that space. And 2.5 years later, we're 2 years in a row under budget, 4 mil. We're 700 days, 550,000 man hour, RI, LTI, HPI free. So long-term injury, restricted injury, and high potential incident free.
For real, for real, like actually, or
yes,
okay.
Yeah,
that's impressive. So if they like actually, absolutely, no one lost time.
Yeah.
No manipulation of the
books. We've probably got a handful of what would have been in the old days probably would have been classified as a restricted injury, meaning that they pulled a muscle and they spent 2 days doing training paperwork up in the office or something along those lines. But when I started there, the restricted injuries they were having was crushed a finger, ripped a finger off the top of someone's bloke, dislocating a shoulder. Underground mining is similar to underground gold. Yeah. But it's such close quarters. The difference between an inch when you strain it, when you strain a leg, the difference.
Coal's a different animal, man. Like we're chasing the same, you know what I mean? Whereas you guys are, it's a different animal for sure.
Yeah. So but I've completely morphed into at 30, a genuine, empathetic, loving father. Soft touch. There for my children. And by 36, 37, 38, I'm a beast. You know what I mean? Like I'm running these 100 guys. I've got my own little multiple companies, subdivision companies. I'm coming in hot on days off to only see my children part time because I moved to where they were where they had moved with their mother. I'm a wild man on the grog. They'd never even seen me drink. They'd never even seen me drunk before I'd broken up. So up till my eldest girl was 10 years old, they'd never even seen me drunk. I'm a good drunk, don't get me wrong. Like some of their funnest memories will be sitting around telling the stories about the time that, dad got teabagged while his mate, passed out next to a fire, or dad, dressed up as 4 different idiots' suits to come out and embarrass them at their 16th party playing in the dark. Like that. And that was the legacy of me was, hide from the anxiety with massive amounts of work. I
was going to say, you are, Franco used to say to me, mate, he used to say, you're running up a mountain, right? And you can only run up that mountain for so long.
Correct.
So it came crashing down again, I imagine. Did COVID do that, or was it prior to that?
Yeah, no. So I was broken. I was broken just before COVID. So I had pretty much hit the wall. I had.
Did you see that? I mean, I'm curious to know from because obviously, I've listened to a lot of your content. I can hear your perspective now. You're not that man anymore, right?
No.
However, in the hole that you're in, did you see the wall coming, or did you just smash right into it?
Oh, I saw the wall come. I saw the wall as more of I'll either run straight through this.
I'm
or
going to leap the wall. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like wall.
Yeah.
What fucking high do you want to build it?
Yeah, come on, mate.
Yeah,
I've got it. Don't you worry about me, sunshine.
I'd part like I'm, because I'm a jovial sort of half smart sort of a person at the best of times. Anyway, that's the best. Like I said, it's the best and the worst of me. Like,
It'll be right.
I was known for famous things like, walked out. I destroyed a guy in a meeting. This guy tried to one up me. I don't know. He was only a young bloke, new to the game, and he tried to one up me. And I was notorious for I'd be on my phone working at meetings because I work best when I'm doing a couple of things at the same time and not sort of listening to I had such a nonchalant attitude towards the rest of these idiots that I thought were, beneath my knowledge and my ability, so, and
there's
a
no
lot
I
of work.
There's no I in teammate, eh?
A lot of them were, and there isn't a person on that site that most of the people that I had the biggest disagreements with wouldn't agree with me that that's what they were. But me pointing it out, and me being the sole source of the resistance against the morons in the industry that were risking people's lives and safety, and not let alone money for the shareholder and the company.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no excuse. That was just the excuse that I used to justify my own toxic, unchecked behaviour.
Yeah, you're projecting onto these poor blokes.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah.
So I destroy this young bloke, and I've got a team of leaders behind me. I've got 6 or 7 coordinators, 20 supervisors, and a project manager that sort of direct report to me. And I destroy him in this meeting. Like I could have let him down. I could have given him the information, but I wanted to make sure this young bloke didn't walk into my domain anymore and try and one up me. So the boys go, well, boy, that was brutal, and they're sniggering and they're giggling about it because they're glad it's not them. And I said, a lion doesn't lose sleep over running down a gazelle.
Yeah. Wow, Jesus.
What a wanker. Hilarious. And see, and this stems back to my stories about being a bully. So I'll unpack where I got to a little bit for that, for the story of sadness of how I lost everything to become this person. It starts a long way back in the protection of myself as a soft young boy, bullied brutally, not brutally, but bullied pretty badly at school.
You're preaching to the choir, man.
I had a cheeky mouth. I wouldn't.
Say that was our only. Hey, Jody, that was our only defense, man. That was our only defense.
Correct.
Yeah.
I had it.
And I bet you, man. Look, our stories. I'm trying not to interrupt you, but our stories are echoing a lot, for different ways, different things. But
yeah,
and I mean, Jody said this. My name's Triffin. His name's Jody. We know we're brothers for that reason. That the labels that we were given dictated our existence to a degree. And yeah, the only defense you have, because and look, you're quick-witted. I'm the same, man. I pick something up, you know what I mean? Like I got a jungle virus in 2013, nearly died up in Papua New Guinea. That's what ended my project management / I used to manage multi-million-dollar projects and stuff all through Southeast Asia.
Yep.
But after I nearly died from a jungle virus, which then sort of the podcast and everything comes out of that for me. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit younger than you. However, very similar stories, and it's like being a smart ass is all we had back then. You know what I mean? Like, because we're quick-witted and you could point out to the big dumb idiot what he was doing, and they didn't like being told, so you get beaten. It is what it is, man. It is what it is.
I wore my beatings as badges of honor because it was almost fundamentally part of the hierarchical system of schooling back where I come from in Central Queensland.
You had to take it. You had to take it. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, like it got to the point where most of my older schooling life, we had a regimented sort of time frame around my bullying. It's like, so at 8 o'clock I'd have to be at a certain place to be beaten up, because if they had to come find me to beat me up, it would be like worse beating up. So okay, be there by 8.
May as well
be there by 8. So be there by 8.
So you weren't you didn't, because I mean you morphed into the bully. Is that what happened, right? So through the divorce and everything else like that. But you weren't till that point. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
No. He was. So that's why I sort of went back and went, look, I don't want to play the sob story of life turned on me and I just turned into something else. So he was a big part of my life, the bully. from a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
He'd always been there, but he was my defense mechanism from when I was younger. I had it, look, my stepdad was a pretty hard man and a very, very slick-tongued person. He would hurt me a lot more with words. Some days I wish I got beaten. Kids talk about beatings and that sort of stuff.
Psychologically, it's harder, yeah.
It is. It lasts longer than the bruise. And I can take a beating. That's cool.
Yeah. That's all right. So that's fine. Do your worst, mate. Yeah, I get it.
I think the intention of the beating was probably almost like what I probably wished I was getting at home, rather than the ignorance of the insufferance and tolerance of just walking past and just shrugging their shoulders at me, or just flipping of the your mother's child sort of thing. And that that's not a poor me thing. That's just an understanding of what we went through.
The thing is, Jody, we all have our story, mate. You know what I mean? And I think one of the things we need to let go of, like I know as I listen to a lot of your stuff, it's like we all need to recognize it just because we've got similar-ish stories, right? It does, and I can relate to your trauma very, very personally. Doesn't mean the next bloke doesn't have his own trauma, right? And the next woman doesn't have his own trauma, her own trauma, right? In order to move forward in this big grand game, we all need to stop messing around. It's not a woe is me thing. It's in order to understand yourself, you must look through your trauma and understand that how the journey got to you, from wherever you were to wherever you're going. It's not a poor me thing, right? This is you sharing your experience, and we all have our own experience, for better or worse, right? And I think, once we recognize that in each other, we can release that a little bit, because it's like, look, no one got out of it alive, I don't think. You know what I mean? I think it's just variation. I think it's just variation, man.
Absolutely. And by design. Again, by design, anyway, I'm bullied pretty hard in my junior years, to the point where the bully calls me out for a fight, and in the end I'm just like, okay, I will. And I go outside and find out that I was okay with the hands, and I give him a towel, and I didn't walk away from that with any other thing other than I grabbed that crown, I put it on my head, and I'm never letting someone hurt me again. Mm-hmm. So I became the aggressor in every situation, and I attack everything in life as though it's going to hurt me.
It's going to beat you. Yeah, righto.
So when I walk into a room, the first thing I do is insult somebody with a witty one-liner. Shoot, everyone laughs, except the person, and that was what it really underpinned me becoming the mouthy bully that I was, and it's the thing that probably I always talk about with bullying and that sort of stuff during school. I bullied a lot of kids, and I was a verbal bully. I didn't beat people up. I was the worst type of bully, was the verbal bully, because I used to say that when 10 kids were standing around watching me, if I was going to get beaten up by somebody, 10 kids were standing around watching. 9 of those kids were like, oh God, I'm glad it's not me. 9 of those kids didn't want to be the person beating up on me. They might watch it, or they might allow it by not saying stop. But after the beating was over, there might have been a little bit of remorse for me. There might have been a bit of empathy for me, but they certainly weren't going to find me down the street later that day and also give me a beating. But when a person like me stands in a circle of 10 people and I'm giving verbal bullying to somebody, I used to be able to be so good at cracking the one-liner or giving them the nickname that they didn't like, that even though there was empathy in the circle, even though there was dislike for me in the circle, 1 or 2 of those people at least would call that person that same name later that day.
Yeah.
And that bullying would continue even when I wasn't there. And that's why I always used to say that, I look back at them, like, the verbal bully is 10 times worse. The comedian bully is 10 times worse than the physical bully, because my words lasted longer than the bruises ever would.
That's true.
But
listening to your story, Jody, that's what you were getting. You were projecting from.
For sure. And so anyway, so he had gone away by the time I'm 21 and looking after kids, and I'm like, I'm not going to be
that man anymore.
I'm going to be this. I'm going to, like I said, I didn't drink in front of my kids, I didn't smoke in front of my kids. They didn't hear me swear until they were 14 years old. I set all of the ground rules, and not. It wasn't any real issue for me to do it. I didn't have to be some diligent monster, diligent militant sort of person to do it. I just had goodwill, good intent for my children.
Why? You just chose a different path, mate, didn't you? You didn't want to be You didn't want to be your stepdad, or you didn't want to do what you saw. Yeah.
Correct. And so flip back to where I was. He had just come back out in me. I had reverted to basically the ego shield that I had built back. I built myself back in those days. I had, and I had no aggression. I had no way to get aggression out either. I was, very confused with my mental health issues, just not understanding, having everything. I had, a new beautiful wife by then. I had all the bells and whistles, the toys. I was still, rip fit.
Doesn't make a difference, man. Doesn't make a difference.
Correct, but this is what this is the confusion that comes because sometimes it's easier to be at rock bottom and understanding. Oh well, I'm feeling like shit and I'm anxious because I'm at rock bottom. But when you're not actually at rock bottom and you're still feeling that same way, it can be quite confusing. So,
I think the thing is you've got to go through the looking glass of how hollow everything you've been taught that they say means something doesn't. Right? All the toys, all the houses, all the coin doesn't mean anything really. Like it's good. It's filling
the hole in the heart space. I say,
that's exactly what you're doing, man. That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, that's an endless hole. So, so I start thinking to myself, okay, well, this is a bit of a family thing. There's things in the family that there's lots of people in my family that have similar issues with this, and we all have different lifestyles, and we all have different things, but we're all lows by blood. So I'm thinking, okay, well let's do what I do when there's some problems, and let's look at more angles than one. So I'm like, okay, well, what is this? So I start looking into a bit of brain science stuff, and I quickly find my way to the sugar versus fat.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
So I quickly find my way to the sugar versus fat sort of triangle and the science. And I've never been a conformer to anything. You know what I mean? Like I walk my talk. I do my own thing. I don't need policing. And it's a big part of my training that I do with people, understanding reactive cultures, police cultures, dependent cultures, and independent cultures. So I'm a proud advocate of policing myself, and I had done that for a long time. So I lost my train of thought.
Sugar versus fat.
Sugar versus fat. Sorry. So I'm like, I'm gonna look into this and heal myself, and then all of a sudden I start looking at this thing and going, hang on a minute, like I don't really trust. I don't care for government. I don't care for the policing and the ruling, that sort of stuff. But this looks to me like blatant, obvious manipulation of the system through money.
Yes. Yeah. The sugar paid the scientists to say that fat was bad when it wasn't bad. Yeah.
And what do you know? Fat's free.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
what
good
do you
for
know?
you.
Sugar's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so I start reading into the principles of the sort of cholesterol. The cholesterol basically being the
cholesterol's good, man. Most cholesterol.
Yeah, the cholesterol level, and cholesterol basically being the transport for certain things to split off into the 5 main hormones that you need.
Yeah, the receptors in the brain, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So without being scientific or trying to talk scientific into it, I sort of start off down that path with this air of caution of like everything I'm starting to read over here, like this is horse shit, and I'm really starting to question the system. And along comes COVID. Yeah. So I'm already into this world, and
so sugar versus fat was your first conspiracy, was it? Was that your cherry? The sugar versus
I guess I dropped my nut on that. For the first time, sort of that was the.
Yeah, it's a juicy one too. The whole food pyramid, the sugar, like it's been manipulated from the 50s. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but like particularly like I said, from 21 to 31, I'm 6 beers a year, and no cigarettes. Never drugs, and I'm 80 kilos, and as close to average as you can get without taking supplements to help you
without Mexican supplements. Yeah.
Correct. So I'm highly aware of my own energy, my own food eatings, and they don't really align with any of the cautionary sort of
I think everybody's different as well, mate. You know what I mean?
Correct. And that's what, like I had just dismissed it over the years going, look, there's 24 million at the time, people in this country alone. Like what's the chance that, what's the chance that everybody's going to have the same eating requirements. So let's start with a basic understanding for the, for everybody, and you just, sort of work your way into that. And then when I find out that the whole thing's a hoax, and not just a hoax for money, a hoax that has and is having some massive detrimental effects,
unbelievable effects
on health.
Absolutely.
The suicide, depression, anxiety rate is through the roof. The body fat, the body fat and general health is plummeting. Body fat's going up, but the actual general health of people, obesity.
Well, I mean, you've only got to, I mean, there's the classic one. Look at photos of people in the beach in the 70s, man. There's no fun. The fat person is an aberration, whereas it's not now. Look, the sugar fat thing's interesting, man. I remember so look, I mean, not too much of my, look, long story short, when I came out, because when I got my jungle virus, I was 85 kilos, jacked, 10% body fat, right? And then basically I spent 8 months sleeping 20 hours a day, eating pasta, a lot of drugs, a lot of pain meds, like crazy. I don't know, the listeners have heard it before, but, coming out of that, I'd put a lot of weight on, right? And then that was sort of like, I remember it's quite funny actually. You get in these mental spaces, right? And I remember a guy, one of my students, I became a teacher, and look, I knew I had some weight, I had weight on, but I was still recovering from the virus, and it was rebuilding every single muscle in my body, Jody, like every single one, basically. Everyone had gone into atrophy, my whole body. Pretty much didn't have to learn how to walk again, but it wasn't far off, you know what I mean? And then, one of my students, I was showing a photo of P&G before I got sick, right? Because I took some project photos and stuff. And one of the students pops up from the back, I guess they didn't sell donuts over in P&G then, right? Because I was a little bit tubby. And I'd been ignoring it, the cognitive dissonance. I knew, right? And I jumped on the scales, and I was like 115 kilos, man. I'm like, holy shit. And then I already knew the sugar versus fat thing, but then that sugar documentary came on, and they like monitor your sugar intake. And I did that over the course of one day, right? It's like, and I got a kilo of sugar, and like I was consuming and I wasn't eating excessively, but I was still consuming 300 to 400 grams of sugar a day.
On a four-star Australian health diet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was like, from that moment, I was the same. I fast most days now. And I've pretty much been, I don't know, 88 to 92 kilos, depending on the day, for years now. And that sugar versus fat thing, like I fast most days. You know what I mean? You've got to find what works for your body. And you've got to find, well, look, we're not getting any younger, Jody. You know what I mean, mate? We're both in our 40s. And you've got to stay strong, but you've got to understand how your body works and the fuel which your body appreciates. And I think the key is everything in moderation, including moderation, mate. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to be disciplined. If you don't give yourself any release valve, you turn into a different kind of monster. You know what I mean? Because you've got no release there. Well, sugar versus fat, because that's it. And the thing is, the depth to that, if that was your first rabbit hole, man, you would have been
and that's what I said. Like, I think I was always sort of aware of things because the ex-father-in-law had been pretty, he had a wide range of topics in his head, but most involved money or sort of progression of money. But they were farmers, so I had learned a lot about farming. I was a heavy-handed unionist, as you can imagine. Being in the mines, being a young gun with a tongue.
Mate, you would have been good. You would have been good for those guys.
So they'd feed me full of bullets. They'd feed me full of bullets, and I would I'd be able to recite some legislation to belittle and befuddle the mine operators that set up in front of me. So they had a great time. Feeding me bullets and letting me do that, thinking that I was a well bit, and we had all the power then, so we abused it, viciously abused it, and played a big part in losing it.
I was just going to say that's the problem, man. You know what I mean? It's like the unions overplayed their hand. They did. You can't say you boys did.
Everybody in power has. you know, like there's a video that I do that says, you know, about the power of the pendulum and the swing that comes with the change. And I said, any time that you find yourself on the outgoing tide of a swinging pendulum, that's really hurting you, that probably means you abused the power when you had it in your favour.
It's true.
Because you know what I mean? Like, so if you're really hurting when that power gets taken away from you, so, you know, if you're getting defunded as the police when the Black Lives Matters takes over, you probably abuse your power.
Yeah, they went too far in one direction. Yeah.
Correct. And, you know, so when it swings against you, you know, you realise that you've done something wrong. So I'm always talking about what can you do in your day to make that pendulum as stable as possible. So the swing is such that, you know, Liberal and Labor should never be, you know, all the way over here, that the unions are in control of everything, or all the way back over here, the man is in control of everything. I mean, he's got to.
But it's interesting. That's true, absolutely. But it comes back to, and isn't this fascinating? It comes back to the balance, man. Right? It comes back to the balance. That pendulum effect reflects through everything, and it comes back to the balance. You know. So COVID, you fell in. How long before you smelled the bullshit at COVID?
Well, so about 4 months before that, there was a project going on site that had to be done. It was a big project. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. They needed someone who would bite the bone and roll it out. So it had to be rolled out, and in the sense when miners are stubborn, it needed to be rolled out. So I said, well, I'm good at rolling shit out. Yeah. You know, I'll take that on because it gave me more control and into the different departments to sort of clean up a bit of the shit that I didn't like as well. So anyway, so I put my hand up. I'm working with some lower level people on this project, and I get to meet the owner of the company and the project. And he turns out to be one of my best mates from high school that I hadn't seen or heard for, you know, 15, probably 20 odd years. And I tell him about mental health, and I tell him that I'm thinking about starting some sort of company for men in mining and that sort of stuff. And we get talking, and I tell him my theory for this app, the sporting app that I wanted to make, to reconnect communities, to reconnect men, and reconnect, you know, give as we get older, give us the ability to still be competitive without having to have long form competition sports and, you know, have to train and all sorts of stuff, because everybody's so time poor these days that, you know, if I was to say, hey, Triff, you want to play golf on the weekend, you'd be like, oh, fuck, 4 hours. I don't know if I could squeeze that in. But I'd say, hey, if you want to play the app and have a driving contest, you know, half an hour, have a beer, do a driving game or a putting game, or, you know, meet you at the bowling green, whatever. And so we get the fundamentals put down, and we start building this app. So 5 months into it, I hit February, March of 2020 with my let's get outdoors. Let's get together.
Let's get moving. Let's get moving. Yeah, everyone joined hands.
Let's get physical in the sun. Fun in the sun was the one of the guidelines.
Oh
of
yeah,
it,
yeah, fun in the sun. We can't do that, mate. Can't get vitamin D.
Yeah. So you know, like I've got Fauci on the other line going, yes, he's saying fun in the sun, so fuck that off as well. Get rid of the fun in the sun. What else has he put his money into? Yes, getting outside.
We're not going outside anymore. No, not going outside.
Get rid of that, mate. Yeah. you know, like if I hadn't known better, I would have thought that he could hear me every time I put some sort of fundamental principle behind my sporting app. So you know, like I built scale too. You know, so I could have probably scrapped out a $30,000 shit show sort of and you know seeing what I did and whatever, but I built the scale because the ability and the connections that I had through I was in mental health, even though I was suffering from mental health myself, I was by that stage, you know, I'm 7, 8 years into the game of understanding how to control myself, and how to get the best results out of the instability of my control of what was going on. By then I had understood that the balance that was necessary to get through my life was my principles were spiritual, physical, intellectual, financial, and emotional. And I had seen so many people sort of be really, really good as I was in 2 of those categories, and three eventually that were no effort was put into them, eventually sort of caught up and created the imbalance that.
Well, it does, mate. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That makes you fall over, man. And look, that's a classic issue with men. It's a classic issue with men in the industry that, you know, we have both been in. But but it's also, there's an Aussiness to that sort of stuff as well, where we were never told that we were a multi-part being. It was
Yes.
make the money, look after the family, harden up,
Yeah.
drink beer, don't complain, right?
And the whole world is, and particularly even mining is built on, we all say we don't like reactive places, workplaces. Legislation in mining is built on reactive. We kill someone, we write legislation.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
broke a foot, we wore a boot. We smashed a head, we wore a helmet.
Yeah.
So, the fundamental principles of mining itself were reactive, and men particularly were really great at that. And I used to do some work about talking about preventative versus mitigating strategies.
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole industry and the whole health thing, which I now see the devious side of it. At the time, I was innocently sort of suggesting that we're not putting enough emphasis into the preventative maintenance of a critical failure of our health, and more money and funding and more talking points were put towards mitigating strategies. So once you've already had your failure with your marriage, with your health, with your brain science, failing, you would go out the other side and you would be,
which is
psychologist.
Is that still about 80% in the mining game? Marriage failure, all that sort of stuff that used to be
huge.
About,
Suicide is huge. Marriage failure is huge.
Look, man,
addiction to alcohol and drugs is huge.
Oh, mate, I remember. I don't know if I've told this story on the show before, but the thing is about working FIFO is that, and I'm you'd see the same. I got to see some really cool places, Jody. I got to see some really cool things. I did some really cool stuff. I, solved some really cool problems, and saved some money and did all that stuff. You know what I mean? However, the mental health aspect of being in the middle of nowhere for a long time, whilst you've got 1,000 cool stories, we've all rocked in the corner. That if you're honest, if you work FIFO for over 10 years, you've had your moments where it was too much, because it is an ultra competitive atmosphere. It is a 14-hour. And look, back in the day, it wasn't a 14-hour fatigue management. No, that's not how it works, right? You did the job till it was done, right? And then and you dealt with the fatigue later on with 6 beers, and then went back the next day. That was how it was done. That's how we did it. And I remember, one of the big formative things for the mental health thing from my eyes is I remember being at a mine, and I think the thing with mental health in men is that we're not good at showing it, right? We're very good at sweeping it under the rug. You know what I mean? And this guy, I didn't know him very well. He wasn't part of my department, but I sort of knew him. We messed around, had a beer, threw darts, played pool, sort of thing. And anyway, he comes to breakfast with us one day and has a laugh. You know what I mean? Nothing was out of the ordinary at all. And he goes, "Oh, I forgot something in my room," and never came out. Right? Now, I didn't know, none of us knew, right, that's what he was planning. That's what was going on. And he came and had a laugh with us. And again, same thing, all the toys, all the cash, all the, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
None of it makes a difference, man. You know what I mean? It's
absolutely. I agree. Middleman alone I think we had 11 kids under 23 commit suicide in that town alone. Population of 4,000 people. 11 kids commit suicide before I finished high school.
Yeah.
The amount of times that I heard of or attended a funeral of a young kid in that town became so regular that it was just like,
it didn't mean anything. Yeah, I got to go.
Absolutely. It was just it was so often, and so anyway, so I'm building this website. I'm looking after the wellness on site. I'm the inclusion diversity counsellor, so I'm all Mr. Destroy you if you mess with me, but I'm empathetic to the human cause. So this is my stepdad, this is my mum. My mum is the most beautiful person in the world. Do anything for anybody, never cause a problem in her life. And Mr. Arrogant, sarcastic arsehole over here. I'll help you, and if you don't take my help, I will strangle you until you believe me that I'm trying to help you. And please drink.
I'm trying to help you.
Drink the fucking water. You know what I mean? Like, what a muddled mess of a human.
Yeah, that's. I love you. I
you know,
love
and
you.
yeah, correct. Yeah, that's right. I'm beating you for you. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah. So this is, you know, my office is called the Office of Tears. Like I have a massive office, like so big that my office is 2 times the size of the SSE on site, because I walked into this massive meeting room one day and there's blokes in there that have this meeting in there once or twice a week, and it was sort of, so I just took over a back corner of it, and eventually I sort of just said, look, these are really just not doing much in here, get out. So I've got this office double the size, a boardroom size table, big 3 massive big things on my walls, and they call it the Office of Tears. You're either in there getting your ass handed to you for something you've done, or people are coming in there going, oh, I was just wondering about this. Oh, you know, so sit down. Oh, well, no, I didn't really need to. Sounds like you need to talk. What's going on? And, you know, then they're like, oh, my socks were wet 2 days in a row. Oh, you know, like, or some realistic ones of like, you know, my daughter's just had a relapse back into cancer.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I every end of the possibility of the spectrum of people in there crying, you know, telling me their problems, because I was the only hope for someone to listen to them other than having to go and get help. And that's what really sort of made me realize that, you know, we when do we drink water? When we're thirsty. When do we put a dust mask on? When we see dust. When should we put it on? You know, when we're at work, because the dust that hurts us is invisible to us. You know, like, when do we stop from fatigue? When we've swung the hammer one too many times and nearly smashed the workmate beside us in the shin. You know, like, when do we get help with our relationship after she's already been found, after she packed the kids up and left, and then we go and get some intervention sort of work? You know, all of these things are after the facts, and the same as when do we get help with our mental health? Or we have complete and utter failure or breakdown or whatever, and then we go to a psychologist, or hopefully, if not a psychiatrist, you know, get medicated. We end up at doctors, you know, and so yeah, I started understanding not how to fix myself. I started being the Wimbledon coach of understanding how to tell someone how to win Wimbledon, but never being able to win Wimbledon myself. Like, I couldn't control my own mental health because I wasn't looking deep enough into myself. I was trying to control the uncontrollable. I was trying to control the outcome of a lifetime of stages that got me to where I was. And so I was being my own band-aid, you know, and I wasn't willing to get rid of the things that were helping me get through it, you know, so heavily caffeinated, soft drinks, you know, junk food, and alcohol, you know, and all of those things are, you know, I just had to help other people. I had the information, and I knew how to provide that information. You know, like I did little workshops where I'd be talking to people about, you know, my understanding of, I like psychologists, that, you know, what they're trying to do, but the majority of them to me just sounded sort of like everyone that I'd been to was just a sounding board, someone for me to talk to, and they were in the room. You'd never get the same one. They'd never have any information about this. They'd always have to start again, and it felt, you know, it felt wrong. So I said, good luck to you in that industry if that's who you are. I appreciate the fact that you are a voice for somebody to be heard. But when I would explain it to people, I'd say, your mind is like a Mercedes-Benz, and if you took your Mercedes-Benz to the Emerald service station and said, can you just do a basic service, mate? They'd probably be able to work their way through a basic service. And then we would, if it was broken down, you took it on a truck and went back to the same guy and said, hey, listen, mate, you know, you did a service on this the other day. She's fucked. Any chance of fixing it? He'd be like, no, mate, I can't do that. You need a specialist. And I'm like, that is exactly what I need you to do with your brain when you're thinking about your brain. Think about a Mercedes-Benz and think about anything. Anybody is able to help you with the maintenance side of it. But if you fuck it, if you break it, you're going to a specialist. You know what I mean? And that is where the difficulty starts in your life, because when you've got to go take your car to a specialist, which is in Brisbane, then you've got to take time off work, and it's more cost to get down there, and people know that you're going there. So sort of just trying to make it back.
You got to make it back to the service center without. Well, I mean, I like your analogies. And I can see how you'd be using these in the game, right? This would help boys to try and translate and utilize their own thought processes. I like it. Do you think, though, Jody, that there still seems to be, and look, COVID made people more aware, I think, woke some more people up to the actual depth and depravity of society. However, I think men in general, maybe Aussie men in particular, but men in general, we're just not taught to deal with our feelings and our emotions, man. You know what I mean? So I think there's a misconception amongst us, like, oh, just do it, man. No, we don't know how to do it, right? We don't know how. We weren't taught how to deal with our feelings and emotions. We were even told we had feelings and emotions, right?
Well,
So when you hit the wall, as you said, well, you just said before, mate, you saw the wall coming, but you were just going to leap over the wall. I got nothing, man. I'll just run through. I can see that's happening, but
yeah,
you've got to be able to recognize the triggers, right? I mean, you said you've been talking about triggers and stuff like that, and some of your stuff, which is really good as well.
Well, you're dealing with the mentality of a world that says anytime you do anything hairy fairy, you're a fag. I mean, like if you were to actually embrace your feelings, you're a fag. If you cried, you were a fag. This is during my area, and you got beaten up for it. So you certainly
don't express yourself. Don't express a feminine aspect to yourself.
And even though I believe the fuckery of this world has gone on for thousands of years, and we're just a small blip in the length of this timeline. I look at the mental health things and go, we had a nation of men that went away and saw some of the most the atrocities of war come home to the women and children of the time, at a time where you had to be the strength of the family, but you couldn't talk about your problems, and you certainly didn't have anyone to talk to. Communication was very difficult, other than talking to your neighbour. Houses weren't packed on top of each other, and phones were a luxury, not a necessity. And so, what are you? You're either a silent, distant dad who's alcoholic, or you're an out of control, aggressive dad who is just off the handle. There wasn't really much in between those two things. So you're silent and distant, or fucking aggressive and over the top.
And they created the generation, and then they created our fathers, and then that created us. You know what I mean? And it's an ongoing.
And the beauty and the discomfort of what they were was that nobody judged them. Nobody needed to judge them. They didn't have the support networks. They didn't have the hotlines. They didn't have the help that we have others today. But when you can see, like I talk about it like a block, a 1 ton of weight on someone's shoulders. So you lose lose your best mate or something along those lines. You've got a 1 ton weight on your shoulder. You know where the weight is. You know what you got to do work to remove it. And I talk about a ton of straw. When you have a ton of straw on your back, and there's just that last straw is what drops onto you and crushes you, and you don't understand why did that break me? What it was, because it's so hard to unpack all those multi-dimensional little issues that are just mounting up on you. So back in those days, they had a ton of weight on their shoulder, which was the war, and nobody judged them for that. Whether they were silent or whether they were wild, nobody really needed to judge them for that. Step another generation, and your old man was wild. I saw you grow up with your old man being distant. I saw you grow up with your old man being drunk. I understand why you are where you are. Go one more generation, and people have started to lose the fact that understanding why. They're like, no, you've got an alcoholic dad, or you've got a dad that's not there. One more generation to where we are now, so me onto mine. And there is no reason for anyone in this privileged society that we have. We're very lucky to this country where we are at the moment. Forget about what's going on in the backwater of it.
Yeah,
but on the surface, my children have never wanted for everything. The food's always been on the table, the roof's been above their head, and they've got a dad. They've got a dad that somehow turns out to be a distant, heart drinking, fully functioning, anxiety freak, and his body's just like glitching like there's a tiger in the room at all times, and nobody can understand. And that not understanding makes it worse than being 3 generations back with a block of weight on your shoulders. And that was for me that the real confusion for the people these days is that we still have the passed down hereditary trauma with the underlying subtleties of what's causing us to feel like there's some sort of stress on us.
Yeah.
But we can't see it. And that makes it worse, because when you can feel the enemy, but you can't see the enemy, you don't have a reason for being the way that you are. It makes you even spiral even more. And that's the thing that we've been trying to unpack with people is the why.
Well, it's the why, isn't it, mate? It is the why. Yeah. You've got to continually, there's a few, you're echoing some of the stuff that I've been teaching for a long time. Like I got the 3 principles: keep it simple, 3 to 5 seconds housekeeping, right?
Yeah.
And I implemented those principles across project sites, mine sites, all that sort of stuff. And I've been teaching them for a long time. And, it's about, you know, there's a process when you're triggered. I teach this process. It's like when you're triggered, it's like, you know, why am I being, you know, does this serve me? No, it doesn't serve me. I don't need to go off like a frog in a sock. All right. I don't need to do that. So don't react. Right. Okay. Okay. Why? Why am I being triggered? And what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? And you've got to keep peeling back the layers and digging into why that trauma exists. Because when you get to the actual base reason, which for a lot of us, because of the generation we are of, and our father and their father's father, right? And however that dynamic worked, you know, it's that we had a lot of trauma that we brushed off because that was the done thing when we were kids, because it was, that was just how it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you fast forward, and then bang, bang, you do the same thing in front of your kids. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, that's not right. You know, I shouldn't be acting like that. I've got no reason to act like that. Why? Why am I doing this? Why do I like the drink? Why do I like this? What? Because this obviously is causing damage. I think there's a generation, and I think it's our generation, mate. You know, there's a generation of men now with enough awareness and enough knowledge to go, hang on a minute. A lot of this other stuff makes sense. Hey, when I meditate, I feel better. When I breathe, I feel better. When I work out regularly, I feel better. If I don't drink 10 beers a night, look at that. After a few days, I feel pretty good. You know what I mean? No, there's an awareness. I think we're really trying, because I know I don't really want my kids to have the same trauma that I had. You know what I mean? Like, and you got to do your best to avoid that. All right. And the only way through that is through yourself. Right. And you talked about the heart cell, the heart center, you know, the mind, body, soul, that integration and the balance, you know what I mean? The spiritual, the you know, the book of 5 rings, man, you know, Miyamoto Musashi, you know, that's some of the other stuff.
And so to go back to the COVID thing, so this is where I'm sitting, you know, working on people, and I'm pitching this process and this program to people, of this constant, you know, renewal of self-worth and a system of integrating, working on wellness factors. So the side program was, the average AF was over here. So when you downloaded the app, it said, if you didn't work on the 5 principles on life, sooner or later life will make sure that you realize that you are just average AF. But you don't have to be a drone or a clone. You get to choose the F that you are. So in the app, you get to choose average and fun, average and foxy, average and formidable, every F word. And so this became the talking piece of it, that, you're as average as fuck. And they're like, no, actually I'm average and formidable, and my wife was average and fiery, and my friend was average and fun. And so that would be the starting talk, which is a niche sort of talking point of what was out there. And you had to understand, and that's what I kept saying, that average is bloody hard work. Tiger Woods, best golfer in the world, you know, doesn't look after his wife, and his alcohol problem turns out to be average as fuck, because he falls off his mantle. And men, particularly, the further you see the things burning behind you on that balance beam, the harder you push towards the things that you're good at, because you end up spending more time doing that, because that makes you feel better, because you're getting that gratification for, like, I'm fucking really good at work, or I'm really good at sport. You know, don't worry about the fact that I'm emotionally devoid of anything and I have no spiritual connection to fuck all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm emotional recalcitrant who.
Yeah, I'm an intellectual frigging idiot, because I spend all my time worried about, make money, and so you know, I'm sort of learning that, trying to do that, and I'm punching this out to the system, and the big business. As soon as I get to the one level above sight, it'd just be like, you're not affiliated with X. Or, you know, that's a great idea. Thank you, little special person. But you don't use the key woke words that we like to use in our big business sort of funded initiatives. And I'm like, I've seen all your big business funded initiatives. You don't connect with the people because you don't talk the people's language. It's like, I'm telling you that you need to start from the ground. You know, you call it ground roots up, but you people are not ground roots. So don't tell me that you're a gardener.
No, they don't have any idea.
Seeds. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, that's a classic thing. You get past a certain point, especially in that industry, and no one gives a shit. You're all just a number. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what.
Correct. And I was like, this is horse shit. You know what I mean? Like I started a thing for Movember, was just running its course. Like we flogged Movember to death. And so underground miners, we weren't allowed to grow mustaches. So I started Mohawk Vember. I had a young bloke who was a barber came up to me and said, "Hey, listen," because I used to every day I'd talk mental health before and at the end of every meeting we'd talk about, call a mate, blah, blah, just make it a vocal all the time, make it a safe space to talk. And this young bloke came up to me and said, "I love the fact that we were talking about it. I'm a barber. In my old life, I'm a barber, and men seem to sit down in the chair and unload, and they feel more comfortable talking to me than what they do go and talk to anybody else, blah, blah. I think we should do something around that." Beautiful. So Mohawk Vember was coined, and we it's actually I'll give you the full story. So we go for Mohawks for charity, and we're raising money. We're up to about $15,000 or something like that. And I'm down on the Gold Coast for a holiday in November. I've got this mohawk, and I've already got, I'm a tat sort of a guy, and I'm walking around and people are looking at me like I'm a moron. Like, "Oh, look at this fucking wannabe, B.A. Baracus.
Punk rocker or something, who knows? Yeah.
And I'm like, I've said to them, and I'm like, "Oh, no, it's for mental health." And anyway, so I messaged this bloke, and he says, I said, "Who's the best people?" Because I'm getting photos from blokes all over the workplace that are dyeing their hair blonde.
Yeah. Putting the spikes in.
Charlie Sheen, Zeds in the back of it.
And the tracks. Yeah, the old tracks.
I
like it. Yeah.
And I'm like, where's the best way to place to trick this up? And he says, go to the God Barber in Burleigh. I said, okay. So I messaged the God Barber. He says, "Meet me here tomorrow, Monday morning." Beautiful. I get in on Monday morning, and there's this guy there. He's pretty miserable. He's missing a few teeth. He's sort of rough sort of looking fella. And he's the only one there. And he's just, his vibes, his energy's real low. And I get in the seat, and I'm like, "Hey, mate, yeah, I remember." He goes, "Oh, yeah, come in." I said, "I was talking to you about this, I wanted Average AF. It's my mental health company. Maybe you can trick that into my hair and that sort of stuff." And he says, "Look, I don't know nothing about what you're talking about. I'm only here." You would have been talking to my business partner. "I'm only here because he dove in the surf that afternoon. He dove in the surf and snapped his neck, and he's in intensive care."
Oh.
And so we end up having a mental health conversation while he's shaving mental health stuff into my hair for a mental health foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And a month later, I go home, and I promise him that we'll if something happens to him, that his life won't be in vain, because he was the most upsetting thing was he was a true what do you call it when they work in the community? Altruist.
Yeah, altruistic. Yeah, altruism.
He had just got his first sort of gig, so he took young kids off the street that had been kicked out of the school and education system because they didn't fit in, and they would train them as barbers to give them a point to life. And so they were working with youth in the communities, and he spoke really well, and he had just got a gig at one of the big schools where he was going to speak to the kids at the schools and talk about other pathways. Don't think that just because you can't go to school. Anyway, so snaps his neck. A month later, turn off the life support. He's passed away. So we eventually start. They wouldn't let me call it Barbar Black Sheep because it had racial connotations, and it made sense to me because barber and because black sheep mean that you keep the family. But also sheep because they were Kiwis, and I like to put a little bit of piss take and everything. And
got to give the Kiwis a bit of shit, mate. That's our responsibility.
Correct, and so it has to be changed on the spot. Puts me on the spot. I've got 10 minutes before I go to a pitch to the BMA people to change the name. They're like, no, they're not happy with the name. So the barber share, it's not just hair we care as a piss take sort of thing. So the barber share. The barber share becomes a name for, sit down for mental health. 5 minutes to think about it after, all the beauty of what I had created was 5 minutes. So the barber share comes out. We raised $28,000 and we have a massive outpouring of hearts for sitting in the seat and talking about mental health and that sort of stuff. The following year, we fly up the barber shop owner, the guy that did my hair, and the younger brother, who's also a barber, the younger brother of the guy that, and we dedicate the entire year and the entire thing to the loss of his life and his altruism with kids and youth. And we start a program that eventually gets funding through my stubborn pig-headedness. And I basically messaged the CEO of BHP and called him out. I'm not funding, of the gap between what they say they do versus the actual ground.
Yeah, what's actually going on? Yeah, what's actually going on?
The amount of people that are working hard to make this happen, and the budgetary issues that I was doing, like pinching budget out of production savings to fund these sorts of things to keep them rolling because there was no sort of funding for it. So he funds it for a year. So we end up with 4 barbers across 4 mine sites around the Moranbah area, free 2 days a week, with Carlos, the Burley barber shop, the guide barber, sending them down, flying them down, all paid, for their basically the slow days, for a year worth of mental health stuff for men's health. Brilliant.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. That'd be really good. Yeah.
Really brilliant campaign. So back to the COVID thing. COVID hits like a ball, and I'm sitting here pitching to these people that, the reason we're so fucked at the moment is because everywhere we look in social media, we can see, instead of seeing the Joneses, instead of the old days of just walking outside and maybe seeing a nice yard, or they're off on holidays, one person every 3 months or something, or, he's just got a nice new car. We wake up to every day to 1,000 people that we barely know showing us that they're on holidays, got a new car, so everything is thing. And
it's all wank, mate. Yeah.
It is. And I should be ashamed of myself at 50 for not having abs. I should be ridiculed at 60 for having wrinkles.
Yeah.
And if I don't become an instant millionaire after doing this 1 hour course online, I'm a moron.
Yeah.
So it's always this constant confusion of everything's not good enough, and hence the term average. Average meaning, look, average is fucking hard work when you give spiritual, physical, intellectual, financial, emotional.
Yeah, if you can get there, man. If you can try and practice what you preach every day across every discipline, you're doing okay. Yeah,
that's what I said, man. Like 20% of it, you just got to try and give everything 20% to actually think. You're basically a juggler. You're just trying to keep those balls up there. So
yeah, man.
So
I get it.
I just wanted everybody to understand that being average is fucking hard work, and it's okay.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that's what I sort of put that premise around. Average is okay. Like don't let people tell you that average is being lazy or it's not good enough. You know what I mean? It's hard work. Like I listened to Andrew Tate a lot. Where he was talking about you need a high octane human these days. You have to be ultra competitive to get the best jobs and the best women and all the stuff that he does. And I sort of go
did stuff that he did.
Yeah. And I agree. And I agree with what I listen to him in long form a lot. Like, I've probably listened to 14, 15 hours of him. So I understand the principles of what he's saying.
Yeah.
Rather than the snippets.
Look, there's nothing wrong with the principles, man. You know what I mean? Like, I think one of my go-tos is Jocko Willink, right? So Jocko he's a certified knuckle dragger, but he's a different human. Jocko is not from around here, man. You know what I mean? Like he's been doing it for that long that it's, kudos to him, and he's an inspiration. However, he's built his life his way. You know what I mean? Like it's the principles that Jocko espouses are very valuable. Discipline equals freedom is the thing that it changed my life. I'm not going to pretend that it didn't. It did. However, I think the problem I run into with the ultra competitive stuff is it's like, to what end, right? Where does it end? Because it doesn't end, right? Do you know where it ends? It ends in a bunch of narcissistic, pedophilic maniacs ruling the world, man. That's where it ends.
Correct.
That's where it ends with men. Okay.
Fundamental principles of our companies companies are built on that same sort of premise: bigger, better, destroy your enemy, overtake,
more money. It's never going to end.
Shareholders at the other end going, 11%, 12%, 13%. Like dick scratching away at your bottom line. Like the whole system is designed is toxic in relationship. So I understood what he was trying to say, but I also always wanted to come back to people and go, I'm not asking you to be average by default. I'm saying it's fucking hard to be anything but average if you give everything that you need to give everything.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Because you'll never be the best at the physical aspect of life, because you can't afford 2.5 hours to go to the gym every day if you're giving the time to everything else.
Exactly.
So you have to be satisfied that hour that you can give, or the 45 minutes that you can give, the half hour that you can give that day, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And you'll never be the most financially blessed and have all of the red hotels if you genuinely are emotionally attached to your children, where you sort of got to be able to not dive so far into something that when you come back out, like I said, it's the old you have 4 children and you get angry with one child, you get really angry with one child. Well, fucking good luck trying to not be angry with the other 3 children for the rest of the day. And I don't mean angry with them, I just mean a different human to them. because you're still on edge and you're still triggered about this child over here. So you it's very hard to go back to super happy and jovial with the other 3 children. So it's the same as when you dive into, these investment meetings and these high level things and these stressful things. And then you think that you're just going to pull out of that, walk through the door and go, hang that hat up and just go, hey, everybody, Clown Dad's home.
You can't.
Oh,
you can't. Yeah, you can't.
And that's why I say, so that the goal is to not go so far down that rabbit hole that you can't sort of be equally and able to obtain the stability in the other fields or the conscious level of effort that you needed to do.
So I know we're sort of approaching our marker time, right? And I think this is the origin story. Maybe we leave COVID as a section because we've been talking a lot about mental health, and I think it's very valuable. So where's Average AF now? What are you doing now? Let's forget the big chaos section in the middle. Is it still running? What are you doing?
I threw it in the bin because I literally had just reached the point where I got BHP approval for the niche, wording of Average AF once I understood what AF actually meant. Like I gave a free shirt to one of the managers, and he was walking around site, like, oh, I've got a free shirt for mental health. And the bloke said, oh, your average is fuck, mate. And he's like, oh, no, this is a mental health site. And he said, yeah, that's what AF stands for. Like, oh, I don't think so. And was that religious and that sort of a person, uptight about, his presentation to the workforce, that he rang me flat out and got pulled in the office, and he was like, this is a grown man of 50 years old covering his chest like he had his nipples exposed. And he said, what does AF stand for? I said, I guess you didn't read the email, the long-winded email explaining it to you before you went walking around there? No, I didn't. So I explained to him what the AF, and he said, so it can mean fuck. Like this. I'm like, yeah, if you don't do the things that you need to do to look after it. And I said, dude, just take the shirt off. I've never seen someone look so uncomfortable in my life. You look like a fucking teeny-weeny yellow polka dot bikini,
Yeah.
Like, and so he did. He took the shirt off, and that's where I got to with it. I had just reached the pinnacle of being able to use it because it was a bit risque, but they knew that they needed something special. I had just got it to be rolled out in camps. I'd given them 2 tastes of the free stuff that I'd done with the barber share. So I got the people online that I needed to for free. The app was free. You know what I mean? Like it was a no-brainer for, all I'd asked for them was funding for all of their camps to up their sporting premises, or the sporting ability there to facilitate a lot more of it, and help me design the app. There's 120 games in the app, so help me put a lot more presentation around the place of where they can perform each game in the app and that sort of stuff. And then boom, COVID hits. So COVID, where it just done. So I'm out of the mine.
Yep.
The contacts fade quickly because I'm not there running everything. Even the barber share falls over until I 3-4 months before I hear about it, it's fallen, gone, dead. Until I message CEO Mike Hendry and on LinkedIn, giving any response. Someone responds, and I'm polite. I'm not that stupid, but I get the response I want, and a month later, what do you know? It's up and running. They get a year's funding, so I push the right buttons. I get over to the new mine that I'm at. 2 guys introduce themselves, 2 managers introduce themselves through the course of the meeting. They say that we are the site champions for mental health, and if you've got anything like us, I'm like, oh, beautiful. They're talking about it in induction. This is fantastic. So I lob into both of them on separate occasions, 2 days in a row, and explain to them my passion for mental health. And by then, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I'm away from the stress of that old job. I'm thinking I've got a new, fresh start. I'm known for this is a mind that knows me from my origin stories. I've either played football with them, I've worked with them, I've gone to school with them. I'm much more loved soul there than what I was at the previous place. Reset, accept. And I talk to these people, and they're like, "Oh, this sounds fucking amazing, mate. Just what the industry needs." And I said, "Look, I can replicate most of it so easily here. Blah blah blah." And I send it all over an email. And never hear from them again. Either of them never spoke to me again about the situation. To the point where I can only presume my time as a unionist has still got me a mark somewhere right up the chain. And they probably presented it to their HR somewhere up their HR, and they've gone, Jody, what? Jody Lowe? No.
I know him.
Oh no, it's really good.
No,
No, fucking no. Yeah.
So
like,
someone
don't give a shit.
that you burned back in the bully that section we talked about earlier tonight. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is the thing, man. Your your actions echo through eternity, don't they? Right. So
Yeah.
that can happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to pay for some of your sins that you did, and
Yeah,
sometimes
and good. And every single bit of it has been good because I've learned more about myself. I've been pushed harder against the wall. You know, I learned more about myself losing money than I ever did making it.
Oh yeah.
And my wife during that time of COVID, like I went down I'm going to research everything about COVID. I'm going to tell you everything there is to know about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, monoclonal antibodies, and blah, you know. And she's like, "Well, something's up here, and I'm with you. This is bullshit. We've been ostracized. You know, our 10th wedding anniversary, I cooked her a meal at home because we weren't allowed to go out in our own community because we were fucking lepers. You know, thankfully by then we'd moved back to our 20 acres on the edge of town and said, fuck you, we didn't, you know, we don't frequent any of those places anymore. Yeah. But the small businesses lose the money, you know, through the coercion of government. But she goes a different path from me. She goes through some sort of spiritual enlightenment type thing, and she goes into energy healing, and she starts with some new age stuff with you know, that with the Reiki sort of things, and moves on to access bars, and then eventually moves away from it. And she's been my rock, and it has not been easy for her at all. Probably the hardest time in her life for 10 years, dealing with me while I'm going through my shit. And she's got a cop of the good and the bad. You know, what is he today? Oh, he's funny, happy guy today. Oh, he's fucking angry guy today. You know, so you know, her life has been miserable, which is probably why she went to the spiritual sort of path. And that's where it really gets real for me, because forgetting about this and that and the reasons, I started to understand through her that she always said that I couldn't heal anyone. I can't help anyone until I heal myself. She's really a strong advocate of saying you can't truly heal someone without healing yourself. So I'm an empath, and I take people's energy on. And because I was so poorly mental health myself, you know, every time I would sit and have these mental health conversations with someone, I would get something on it. So I would take some of their bad energy with me, you know, some shit with me, and I was, and she didn't know how to clear back then, but now she knows how to clear. She's my rock, you know. She clears all that negative shit off me. I'm trying to learn how to do it myself, and I'm a much better human for it. But the way that I explain it to people with what I was going through, or what people go through, seeing as we've gone this route, we'll stick to this route.
Yeah, look, mate. I think, man. Obviously, I know you want to wrap it up soon, so let's.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried about wrapping it up.
Okay, all right, that's cool.
So if you tell me when you're done, and I'm good,
man. Yeah.
So originally it was sort of seven chakras, and we don't necessarily believe in that whole system. Yeah, it's a little bit too convenient that it's being by them or
Reiki, the new age spiritual healing. I mean, as I say, my wife is the same. She does her own. She does very similar things as well. As I say, we're echoing each other for it's good, a little bit creepy actually. But look, the Reiki is corrupted. There's some interesting stuff there, and I know I've just pissed off a lot of people. But however, at the same time, if that is your gateway, right? If that is your gateway to energy healing and energy understanding, I don't see an issue with that. You've just got to be careful about how you use that.
Correct. It's the same for me as religion. You know, like I've been on the journey that I've been on has been seeing a military response, a biblical response, a spiritual response, and a political response. And I've been listening to all aspects, and I try and bridge the gap for these people to realize, hey, you actually haven't got that much. You've got more in common than you have not in common. And realistically, the enemy is something that definitely is in common. You know, so forget about the fact that, I want to strangle them. I want to hang them up. I want to run them out of town. I want to lock them up. It doesn't really matter what you do to them, as long as you all agree that these people need something done to them.
That's right.
That's
right. It doesn't really matter.
So I'm not insulting. I'm not insulting people when I have my little opinions on it. I absolutely believe that there is more to the systems in the world. And what I start with people, like I said, I try and digest smart people's words or educated people's words. And when I say educated, I mean somebody who's put a lot more time into my understanding of Reiki, and I'm sitting here saying, oh, it's new age, from my 15-minute TikTok video that I've probably heard about or something like that. But I go with discernment, and like you said, intent is everything. So, the intent of what they're trying to do with the Reiki means more to me than the fact that the Reiki energy might be coming from somewhere that is not where it comes from.
Look, man, the flip side is true. If I run into a Christian person who is a good Christian, who gets faith and all that sort of stuff through the church and community and stuff like that, and that gives them strength, and cool, man. No worries. It doesn't. Yeah. Everybody's on their different paths. Everyone's on their different steps.
As long as they don't use that as a virtue that would make them think that they have some sort of higher authority than me because of the way that they are virtuously telling me what they do. That's the thing.
Yeah. Don't push your shit on anyone, but believe whatever you want. You know what I mean?
And so Leah was really good at teaching me to understand energy and the flow of energy, top to bottom, basically, for grounding purposes. And what she had said was that as men particularly, we don't like to have the thoughts in our head, and we certainly don't like to have it in our heart space. So what do we do? What do we do when we have trauma? Is we push it down. Yeah, and it naturally wants to go there anyway because it's negative energy, it's low vibration energy, and so it's going to sit down in that low vibrational space energy anyway, and so we push it down. And so I explain to people the tree that sits outside and it's a beautiful sunny day and it's all going good, and the drought comes or the cyclone comes or the storm comes, and what does it do? It pulls all of its nutrients down from all the things that are pretty and useful to other things, but not necessarily useful to the tree. It is in a fashion, but it's not necessary for it to survive. So it pulls all of its energy back down into its solar plexus, but more importantly, its root and its trunk. And that's where it sits when it's been hurt, when it's been traumatized. That's where all of its energy and power sits, because that's where it feels best. And only when a man truly is able to start thinking that it's safe to regrow, the first place the energy comes back to is the heart space. And what do you feel in it? You feel the emotion that you have been disconnected to from a long time. It could be 1 year, it could be 1 decade, it could be a millennia, depending on how many times you've relived this life. Right. But that when it hits that heart space, you are weak and you're emotion filled, and it doesn't even really get a chance to get to the head where you can actually sort of think about it, because you've got to go through that space first. What's the first thing we do? Push it back down there, get a drink, beat our chest, and go and have sex with someone, because because that's the reality of what we've sort of taught ourselves how to deal with that sort of stuff. So that the first part of my rebuilding journey with her help was clearing the energy first, because that gives you at least the free space, that gives you the space in your mind to be actually able to say, this is what I'm going to do, set your intention for it, so that when the feeling comes, you're not shocked and overawed by the feeling of the emotion. And then say, yep, cool, so I'm clear in my mind, I understand what my intent is, I know that it's going to hurt. The trauma is locked away down here, and it's got to go through this heart space to get to where it needs to be, where my brain to process.
There's some ugly moments, mate. You got to sit in the ugly.
But for sure, I'm walking around one day after I start unlocking the stuff, I'm just hosing the ground, I'm singing Cow to the County, and I get to the chorus and I bawl my eyes out and have to find my wife immediately as a 46-year-old grown man and be nursed like a small baby on the bosom. I told you it's going to hurt, and it's just going to come up randomly, and I'm like, I don't have to be.
It does, man, and that's the thing. It does, dude. This thing, it's the weirdest. Like and
this is what I'm saying is, like, I'm like, oh, cool. I have the gab. I can talk. I can make it relatable, and I can have some sarcastic humor involved, so you don't feel like you're in a therapy session, when we're talking about it. And these conversations has helped me as much as they've helped the people around there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's just every time you unlock a new key to what our bodies, what the potential of our bodies are, you also unlock a new lock. You also find a new lock that you don't have the key for, that these fucks are put on there to continue to make sure that we don't find what our potential is.
That's right. Absolutely.
And that's the thing that's been this awakening for me as I've moved forward, is the understanding of, like, well, I can do this, but these pricks are doing this, and then I can do this, and then these pricks are doing this, and that's really been the story of my growth from childhood trauma, bully, successfully, world failed, fell on the head, built back that arrogant ego shield to defend myself, attack first, never get put on the back foot. Makes me extremely good at my job, because nothing ever sneaks up on me and catches me out, because I'm hyper aware of what risk to my workplace, what risk to my people, all this sort of stuff. So that it's the good and the bad of me, you know what I mean? But like I said, it gets me to the point. So average AF, I throw on the shelf and realize that I have so much more work to do on myself before I can genuinely stand in front of people saying that I'm there. It doesn't matter, it exists, and it sort of pushes to the side. And I start talking truth. And in the years of talking truth and start doing these videos, what I've amassed is a collection of people that not only want to hear the truth, but they also want to look for alternatives to the mainstream media's narrative, to the big farmers' narrative, to big businesses' agenda, and to the World Health Organization's fuckeries. And so I'm like, oh my God, like what has ended up happening is I've built the community that I was looking for by just being a truer, better version of myself, and not actually using their model of how to use Facebook ads and how to all of their bullshit that they've created to keep you entrapped in their matrix slave type system. I haven't used any of that, and I've gone completely away from what I was doing, and I found myself in a much stronger mental framework with absolute true belief that I can speak to anybody at any level on what it is that they're doing and how we can avoid it. At the same time as having true connection with people like yourself, that would never have happened had myself and you have not been through the trauma that had trajected us onto the path that eventually crossed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And these are the things, everything, I'm going to say everything happens for a reason. I don't know. That's an interesting discussion. We could probably wax lyrical about that. However, you're on your path, you're on your journeys. And I think I know I've sort of done a similar thing with the podcast, man. Like I sit in here in the studio and I record, and it's a passion project. I've never tried to make money out of this, mate. It's never been about that. It's always just been about trying to share knowledge and gain knowledge and have an escape. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I've had some. Look, I think the thing is too, man, is that COVID took its toll on us so much. You said you listened to the other one the other day. We haven't processed the trauma from the last 3 years. We haven't even begun. We haven't even, because they haven't stopped, right? They just switched gears and traded something else for something else, right? However, one of the things it did do is it made a lot of us rise. You know what I mean? Like, I was never going to comply. Right. And I think, and neither were you, right? And I don't think people understand what that means. We were never, doesn't matter what happened, never going to comply. Right. There was just like, and people don't, it's like, oh yeah, but no, you don't get it. We were never going to, it was never, and it is never going to happen. Right.
There was no point in time where I was close. In fact, the harder they pushed, the more I educated myself, and further I got away from it, and to the point where I started the purpose as an anti-COVID and ended up an anti-vaxxer. I'm so deep into the information space now that I can give you the RFK Junior figures that he touts, because I'm like, holy fuck, and like I joked the other day, I said that the beauty of this game at the moment is that whatever they're telling me to do, I just do exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the rule. Yeah, you guys need to do this. Okay, see ya.
Yeah, and look, I talk about being average. I talk about being an average Aussie, and realistically, it's a bit of a bullshit. It's a bit bullshit to say that too. I've been so blessed with having multiple businesses and multiple industries in across different types of humans, and that gave me the drive to so I've got the rocky childhood, and then this gifted later in life part, and so most people that have the rocky childhood don't get the later in life part, and most people that have had the gifted later in life part started off with a blessed family life, silver spoon type thing, that the train tracks don't usually cross in and out as many times as I have. So that's been a gift for me. Like I had a hotel up in North Queensland. I had I had a farm, had a 1,000-acre irrigation farm down on the Murray River. You know, I had a subdivision company where I had to deal with people. You know, I've been the union rep, so I've been the company rep. You know, so I've seen the side of me.
Both
you know,
sides of the coin. Yeah.
Arguing for everything that's, you know, we want everything. We got to, you know, 2011 we get the first EBA signed off for one of the Anglo mines, and then we get offered. I make $180,000 for the year for the first year of the EA agreement, and we nearly get to go on strike because they stopped fucking supplying free thongs for the bathhouse because of tinea. Like guys are fucking cracking it, like fucking they've taken the fucking thongs off us. We're like, we just made $180,000 fucking dollars, and you can't spell your name. You know? You know? And like he's the fucking second person in his family to walk upright. And
that's
that,
not
you know,
very nice. However true it may be, it's not very nice.
It's okay. There's no chance he's watching this. No chance he's listening to this.
Yeah, right. All right, fair enough.
But yeah, so, you know, I mean, like, so I say that I'm average. I'm not, because of the way the system has crippled the ability for people to move around a little bit like the old days, and, you know, see the world at the same time as working and enjoy this country for the prosperous opportunities that it once had. You know, these days it's bang out 13 years of school, get a mediocre job in the town you grew up in, stay there and pay taxes until at 75 years old you might have paid off the house and die.
If you're lucky.
That's
not with some of the more, you know, they're going to be generational mortgages the way it's going.
Well, yeah, they'll just take them off as soon with the new world order, but we won't be paying any
mate,
mortgage.
they're going to pay us. They're going to pay us, man. They're going to say, hey, listen, you can't pay your mortgage because we've jacked the price up of everything to it's unbelievable. So look, we'll pay for your house, man. We'll give you some money. We'll clear your debts. You'll be scot free. But we own the house now.
It's an interesting story because I talked about it in 2018 when I first started hearing about that. 2019 he starts coming out with his COVID reset. In 2020 it's quite prominent. Klaus, you know, swab. And I said to people in a couple of videos, I'm like, think about this. You know, 2020 things are going well. The country's reasonably prosperous. We don't have this killer disease that's going to wipe everybody out, and things are going well. We've got decent money everybody's got decent money in the bank. The small businesses are going all right. You know, we're not anywhere near a recession or depression. We don't have a great deal of debt. We've paid a fair bit of it down since the global crisis. And I said, and then this guy starts saying, you'll own nothing and then you'll be happy. And everybody at the time's like, what are you talking about, dipshit? I'm paying 1% interest. You know, I've got fucking jet ski and a fucking...
Yeah, man. I'm good, bro.
I'm cool, bro. Like, see you later, bro. And he's like, yeah, no worries. See you soon. And it's like, you know, we're at $1.5 trillion in this country now with the debt, double the debt ceiling of the global financial crisis, you know, and all of a sudden we're like, you know, inflation hits 30%.
So what's it like up there at the moment? I bet you there's a jet ski and a ute and everything else like that on every corner trying to be sold, I imagine. Is there?
Yeah, starting to be. I mean, we're still in a mining boom here. Like, they're throwing ridiculous. They've thrown money here like I've never seen, you know, anything like it. You know what I mean? They're throwing $250 an hour at certain you know, skill sets to come around. So I mean, we're a little bit shielded from it here. We're not really seeing it that much. You know, yet. So this is another point of me when I'm walking around talking about the end of the world is near. You know, like
with your sandwich board and your bell.
I'm in coal mining towns where they've got three. You know, most of them have got 2 investment houses that have just doubled in price in the last 4 years. Their shares, anything to do, everything's any share that you bought since COVID has tripled in value, and their you know, hourly wage or their salary is about $200,000 a year there, and they're going, what are you fucking talking about, mate? Like, fucking sunshine and
everything's
apart from that great big white line up there in the fucking clouds, like you know, everything's going well. You know, like, and so it's very difficult to get to these people to explain. So I'm happy to be up here. This is my own ground. These are the people that I know. These are the people that I love, and the people that I, you know, stand for my country to protect. Whether their ignorance, head in the sand, is gonna cause them to get stung without someone fighting for them. I will fight for them. And I will be the person that they eventually come knocking on the door and go, you know, that Klaus Schwab bloke, well, fuck me, you know, the interest rates we've just had 17.
Yeah.
you know, bring in 3 more children and another couple of vials of adrenochrome.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite memes is like, it's not like they'd make the villain, you know, like they in the movies where he dress up weird and have a weird accent and stuff like that.
He's got that. Yeah. He's got that one. The outfit that he wore to the 2021 fucking
the forum.
Davos.
Yeah, the forum.
Davos forum. Yeah. But yeah. So
Well, mate, listen. I think we're probably coming to the end of this episode, because I think what we've done here, mate, is we have. I'm going to call this an origin story. Is basically that sort of came to me while you were talking. I definitely want to get you back on. Let's because, you know, we can wax lyrical about multiple different sides of this. I like the fact that you do look at it from all sides. You have to, right? The ability to remain thinking critically, the ability to be able to look at things from different ways and different sides is so very valuable, because it's not one thing, it's all things. And the reason that there's so much cognitive dissonance is because we're not, no one's really ready, right? So a lot of people don't want to admit the depth of the depravity and the depth of, and the fact that it's been going on for a long time. I think, you know, I backed out of the rabbit hole probably, was it 2022? No, it was the end of 2021 when I had the grand epiphany that this has probably been the plan since if not the 1900s, way before that as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an application of a plan that that there's been put in place for a long time. And you know, and we live in a very interesting world. But I think the mental health aspect of this show will be very valuable to the listeners. And I think, you know, I heard, you know, there's a bit of redemption story going on there, Jody. You know what I mean? And at least there's a lot of men that wouldn't have even admitted that you were the asshole that you were. Right. A lot of men wouldn't even admitted that. Right. And obviously, as I sit here now, can I see that? Yeah, I can see that, but that's not who you are now. Right. And, you know, I think kudos for getting to where you are in your journey and being as open and honest. You know, I think the reason I asked about average AF, I'm like, man, I want to get a part of that. You know, like I would have loved to have, you know, because as I say, I've been teaching for a long time, man. And you know, it's the messages you get from the students, you know, thank you very much. You know, I'm teaching them about safety, but it was the 45 minutes that I did on mental health that changed their life, you know, and safety mental health is an aspect of safety. You will be a safer worker if you
can have the safest mind in the world, but if someone shows up mentally incapacitated, you don't blow in the bag when you get there to know whether you're mentally incapacitated.
That's right.
That's right. You know what I mean? There's no real test for that other than someone watching and being aware of what the symptoms are to look for. And like you said, you just had dinner with a bloke. You know, you had dinner with a bloke or breakfast with a bloke at some stage in your life who you would consider, you know, awake enough and aware enough of a human being to have noticed something if something was there to be noticed.
Oh, very sure. There wasn't. I didn't see anything, man. And
and that's what I'm saying. There's no test for that at the front gate. So it's as important to zero harm in the workplace as the food that they eat, as the camp that they stay in, as the situation of their, you know, their family, like their family home situation. So, look, honestly, I really am. I'm glad that we had that talk, particularly if and when we talk again when you get me back, because I think it's vital for people to see that normal Aussie people go through the same normal shit that they go through.
Absolutely,
and that it is possible to
find your way forward.
And it's not only possible, but it's necessary to truly be able to get back to a space of critical thinking for where the next conversations that we have will come from.
Absolutely. I mean, the you know, there's the three aspects that I talk to the students about these days, and it's common sense, critical thinking, personal responsibility. You know, you tack on, keep it simple, 3 to 5 seconds, housekeeping to those three. And, you know, in today's modern society, I mean, you would know, mate, the catering to the stupidest person for the last 20 years in safety hasn't really helped us. It's taken a level of common sense and understanding of job task and that sort of stuff and dumbed it down probably too far. However, the ability to have common sense and to think critically, especially to observe some of the stuff that's going on, right? And I think what you've done, mate, you're coming back. Don't worry about that. This is a good groundwork conversation. I'm going to call it an origin story. And I really appreciate the vulnerability you showed tonight, man. Because I imagine there was a time when it wouldn't have been easy to talk about some of the things you talked about tonight. I know that from my own experience. So I really thank you for. There's a courage behind that we don't recognize as Aussie males as well. You know, we see it as the next thing. Oh yeah, I can talk about my when I was, fiddled with as a kid and all, I can, and then, I can talk about that stuff now.
Yeah.
But we don't recognize and we got to make sure, like you talked about the heart space, man. And that's, that's such a, we probably should dedicate a show to that. We should probably talk about the heart space in particular outside of everything else, because it's, as a man, working through your heart space is one of the most difficult things we can do. And yes, it's about making sure we are a good husband and a good father and all that sort of stuff. But you've got to be able to find love for yourself, right? And I think that's one of the most difficult things to do, and give yourself your own appreciation, right? So, I mean, as I say, I appreciate the courage you showed tonight. You need to recognize that it doesn't matter how many times you've told that story. It doesn't matter, right? You still can tell it, right? And I think, I know there's boys around Australia and around the world, for that matter, that will appreciate the fact that you took the time to tell your story tonight, dude. So, yeah, look, there's so many million other things to talk about. We're 2 hours in, dude. So,
I know.
We haven't even started. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of everything. So look, mate, I look forward to having you back. And did you want to leave the listeners with a final thought, mate, before we log off for tonight?
Oh no, nothing that needs, like, that we haven't really covered. Nothing profound, but I don't need any some big quote or anything like that. I just want people to know. I just want people to know that that it is possible to deal with that trauma. That you are not alone. That calling this courageous to be able to speak about it will be that way until we're all speaking about it that much that it no longer needs courage to do so.
Absolutely, exactly, and I wish we would all get to that point as well.
Yeah, and we will get to that point we truly will get to that point together. And we'll understand what balance is. That we don't have to cry about every single situation that doesn't go our way, but we also have to recognise that there's modalities out there to make sure that we can help stay balanced, and they certainly aren't alcohol, they certainly aren't drugs, and they certainly aren't anything that the mainstream media or the big pharmacies are peddling our way as band-aids for those sorts of things. So,
mate, I think that's very well said, man. So I think it's there's not much more to say there. I think you trust your instincts, right? You know what's good for you: sunlight, exercise, good food, good times, bit of fun. Water. Drink some water. Yeah. Well, I've been sipping on mineral water the whole time we've been talking. You know what I mean? And
8 weeks sober. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah.
Well done. Well done. Yeah. I mean, I don't drink, man. I don't drink. As I say, I have the odd cigarette every now and again. That's like my last vice. But I don't drink. I don't drink much anymore. Every now and again, yes, but everything in moderation, including moderation. But
I used to drink. For escapism, to get away from the life, so that I can have this conversation by a fire with some bloke at 2 a.m. and not remember it the next day. I feel like shit. Now I'm so comfortable having these conversations that I look forward to it so much that all day long I was like thinking about, this good.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to do?
Yeah. Well, not even that. It's just looking forward to having a good, decent conversation with someone who I've been listening to your podcast, that sort of getting that feel for somebody before you even officially meet them, and when you can talk to someone that you've never met before for 2 hours and sort of go, I guess we have to stop it here.
Yeah, we're not choosing to stop. We have to stop. Everyone work. We got to go to work. We've got to do stuff.
That's right, mate. So thank you very much for your time, mate. And I really, really look forward to getting a bit deeper into the world of fuckery that we.
It'll be fun, man. It'll be fun. Yeah, we'll get down and dirty the next time, eh? Thanks very much, everyone. Good on you, Jody. Thank you, man. Until next time.
Thanks, mate.